looking, throwing in the end zone. Caught it! Montana, touchdown, John Taylor.
Young to the air, Young to Jerry Rice, touchdown San Francisco.
Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owens.
Welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis, plus timely and entertaining sports and pop culture topics. And today we're diving into the Brandon Aiyuk trade chatter, how things have spiraled out of control the past 48 hours. We're going to be talking about when other players have re-upped their contracts with the 49ers and we're still in the ballpark time frame. We're going to be talking Washington, Pittsburgh, New England, and Cleveland, where things stand, and I'm going to give multiple logical reasons why the 49ers do not need to trade Brandon Aiyuk. We're going to be discussing reactions from social media, a segment I like to call Twitter Twats, and they were out in full force. We're going to go over the 49ers' history of trading away players since 2017, a familiar running back returns, and I'm going to be previewing preseason game number 1 at the Titans on Saturday. Just things that I would like to see as a fan. No plus content again this week with all the Aiyuk talk. I just wanted to get right into it. So today it's going to start and end with the 49ers. So like I just said, let's get right into it.
Let's talk Niners.
So even though the trade chatter has been going on for a while, boy, did this really start with a bro hug. You guys know what I'm talking about. That video clip of BA at camp performing his hold-in. So he's there going to meetings, talking with teammates and coaches. He's there so he's not getting fined. Plus, it's a better look for whatever it's worth, even though there's been a lot of crap on social media the past 48 to 72 hours. But however many days ago, there was that video clip of Brandon Aiyuk walking on the practice field, giving John Lynch a hearty handshake and then a bro hug to Kyle. And then, of course, because anybody can read into anything, any which way, responses flooding social media and even, online articles, journals, etc. of, oh, that looked like a goodbye handshake and a goodbye hug. Oh, did you see that hug? He's definitely saying contract details will be coming out imminently. Aiyuk just got extended, and Lynch and Shanahan are congratulating him. And both sides are wrong. And Kyle Shanahan came out and said, guys, that's how we greet each other. We don't have hard knocks here, or else you'd be seeing a lot more hugging. But it's amazing how, for whatever reason, the trade chatter has really amped up the past couple days, even though the 49ers gave Aiyuk and his representation permission to seek a trade around the time of the draft, which was end of April. So we're talking about 3.5 months ago. Guys, in terms of our planet, that's an entire season ago where there's been discussions that Aiyuk's representation could have been having. I don't know if they're having it daily, but I'm sure they're having it weekly, every other week. People are reaching out, asking what it would take. What would it take to get Brandon Aiyuk to come to another team? I don't know if that's step 1 or step 2 or step 1A, 1 and 1A, because the other side of that coin is satisfying what San Francisco wants in trade compensation. So two different conversations or phone calls, right? One from the agent to the new team or vice versa. And the next from the new team or teams to John Lynch figuring out what it would take to pry Brandon Aiyuk away from San Francisco. But the timing of the past couple days, it just felt like it came out of nowhere. And as if there's some sort of urgency to get Brandon Aiyuk traded. Now, guys, he showed up to training camp. Yeah, he's not participating, nor should he. No need to risk getting hurt. Look at all the soft tissue injuries the Niners are dealing with Grendo and Eli Mitchell and Jacob Cowing with hamstring injuries. Ricky Pearsall nicked up his shoulder. Christian McCaffrey with a calf strain. Hell, even the punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, knee irritation. So there's no reason to go out there and practice, especially when he hasn't, quote unquote, warmed up. Who knows what kind of conditioning Brandon's doing at home or whatnot, but he's not ready for full-on practicing or even, I don't even know what they would define as easing him into it, running routes or, maybe a jugs machine. I mean, what's the risk there? Is he going to break a finger? I don't know. But what has sped up the timeline so much that it's not only morons on social media and morons like me and others, podcasts, YouTube, whatever it may be, having this discussion. And then, of course, the Adam Schefters of the world and the Mike Garafolos, stating their sources say X, Y, and Z. And we're going to get into that. And those are the people, Matt Mayoko, highly respected beat writer for the 49ers, very level-headed. He and Jennifer Lee Chan for the periodical and the website that he writes for, very even keel, level-headed, logical reporting. It's not editorializing, it's actual reporting. Mike Silver, another one, does reporting. And a lot of people that get their information from folks on social media, it's opinions. And I'm going to be giving my opinions, but also with some objective points of view, logical points of view. I can't really call anything. I'm going to go over some facts in a moment, but I can't really say anything's a fact. I don't have any sources. Most people's sources online are, trust me, bro. I got a number in my cell phone, bro. Trust me, bro. This is the source that I'm hearing, bro. You ain't hearing shit. You ain't hearing anything because all your sources since end of April have been wrong. But let's go over some facts. Now, I mentioned the time frame. Why are things speeding up? Well, we are a month away from the season starting. So that's one. But there is no ultimate urgency really for San Francisco because Aiyuk's he's not gonna sit out and lose money. He will not sit out his fifth-year option and lose $14 million if he came to training camp and hold in solely, I shouldn't say solely, but a big part of that is not wanting to get fined. If he's not going to want to get fined an amount that's not going to equal $14 million worth of his salary, he's not going to sit out and miss games. But now here are some facts. The past 4 off seasons, the 49ers have worked on contract extensions with some of their star players. In 2020, tight end George Kittle signed an extension on August 14th. In 2021, linebacker Fred Warner signed an extension on July 21st. 2022, the Debo drama. He signed his extension July 31st. And last year, freshest in our memory, Nick Bosa signed his monster extension on September 6th and played sparingly 4 days later on September 10th at Pittsburgh. So we are in the ballpark, folks. This is ranging from July 21st, still training camp, but early in training camp, to the extreme of September 6th, 4 days before the first game starts. What can we take away from this? Well, this is how the Niners do business. Nick Bosa was interviewed today and said that, the Niners are tough negotiators, and he's hearing it secondhand from his agent. He's not part of obviously the discussions. And there is some speculation among reporters that if the Niners felt they, quote unquote, lost the negotiation to Nick Bosa, are they drawing a harder line in the sand with Brandon Aiyuk this year? But George Kittle is still obviously a top 2, 3 at the worst tight end in this league. He didn't sign till mid-August. Nick Bosa is a top 2, 3 defensive end in this league. He didn't sign until the first week of September. Debo signed July 31st. He's not a top 2 or 3 receiver. He's in the top 15. Fred Warner in 2021 was obviously emerging. I don't know if people would call him the best, middle linebacker coming off of the 2021 season or 2021 or 2020 season. But of those 3, that's the anomaly. The fact that he signed so early, that's the outlier of those 3. When you are negotiating monster deals for players that are in the top 2 or 3 at their position, now Aiyuk is not, it takes time, but Aiyuk and his representation, remember, agents are going to fight tooth and claw for every dollar because they get a percentage of the player's contract. They don't want to leave money on the table for their client, but they don't want to leave money on the table out of their wallets or purses or money bins or money clips, whatever, under their mattress, wherever they're storing their money. They're not going to leave a cent on the table unnecessarily. And the wide receiver market exploded. And Aiyuk has an overinflated sense of self, an overinflated ego, like we all do when it comes to our jobs or our parenting ability or our athletic ability, how good we are at certain video games, whatever it may be. Not very many of us at all are humble and give an actual logical perspective of where they stand in the minor or grand scheme of whatever. He saw Jefferson get over 30. He saw now Tyreek Hill a couple days ago just got another extension averaging 30. He saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get 30. So he's like, well, I want 32. $30 million a year average. And if it has been reported, that there's been no further conversations or negotiations, maybe, I don't know what the right term is, discussions, movement, since the Niners offered a contract in May, and apparently that contract average annual value is between $26 and $27 million annually. I've been on record multiple podcasts saying that regardless of what San Francisco thinks, and if they want to play the game of their fifth-year option is $14 million, then averaging out the next 2 franchise tags brings you to about, $23, $24 million? So they feel like $26 million is fair. But you can't offer your wide receiver 1 less money than a wide receiver 2 is making, and that being Jalen Waddle in Miami. And he's averaging $28.25 million annually. That's why I think they settle in at $28.5 million annually. Now, a couple quick things before we get into the teams that are in play or not any further in play. Yes, San Francisco, historically tough negotiators. Yes, they, as I mentioned, the past 4 years, they negotiate in the summer when the clock is ticking. They seem to get a deal done. But I think San Francisco needs to be careful here. There are a lot of mouths to feed, right? They just gave Christian McCaffrey essentially $3 million more annually on top of whatever bonus money he got. We'll talk about Trent Williams in a second. But I don't know if you want to be the organization that's known for not paying players market value, what they're worth. Even if the market is inflated, you don't want to be seen as the low ball team. Now some players veterans, late 20s, early 30s, may still come to teams like San Francisco or the Chiefs or other contenders to chase a ring. People that want a ring will chase, and they will come at a discount. It's a truism in all sports. But I don't know organizationally, and the reputation has been elevated since Lynch and Shanahan have gotten here in 2017. Bosa said it in his press conference today of, I'm very fortunate and blessed to be here. The fact that I got paid, I'm with this organization. It's a great place to be. I don't think there's many other organizations that are as good as this organization. It's the culture, it's the leadership, it's the winning, it's the players, it's the type of players they have. You see, they go on vacation together, partying, birthday parties, Bosa being at Kittle's birthday party on the Netflix show Receiver, and apparently Bosa is really tough to get out of the house. He's just a homebody. That's all good stuff, and that's stuff that will gravitate players to San Francisco, but a lot of them may not come if they feel like they're not paid what the market says they're worth. Now, the market's out of control. You can draw the parallel to housing markets when things are still a little bit out of control, but it's coming down. But when it was at its peak, are you going to pay? Who's forcing you to pay $700,000 for a house that's maybe worth $500,000, right? No one's forcing the Niners to go to $30 million, and no one's forcing Aiyuk to take whatever the last offer is at 26. But I don't think you lose a player of Aiyuk's talents, a young ascending player who's got good chemistry with Brock Purdy. And because I truly believe in my heart of hearts, Deebo Samuel gets traded this upcoming offseason after the 2024 season, and they can save anywhere between like either $9 or $17 million. So that should be factored into the savings or the contract or average annual value for Aiyuk, knowing that Deebo's not going to be here next year. And you could say, "Oh, Al, it's not a foregone conclusion." You're right, it's not. But if they balk at paying one wide receiver, why would they pay two? You could pay one for 1 year, or you could pay two receivers for a year, but you're not going to pay two receivers heavy contracts for multiple years. It's not sustainable. You can't do it for two cornerbacks. You can't do it for two safeties, two defensive ends, two tackles. You just can't. So yes, I still think Deebo's gone. And if Deebo's the fallback plan and they're going to extend him, why would they extend Deebo if they didn't want to extend Aiyuk? Like, what? Again, and I know we're working under the supposition that when Aiyuk gets extended for 2024, both he and Deebo are on the roster, and Deebo is under contract through 2025. But I just don't think the math is going to work for him to be here. Now let's talk about the teams. Now, late breaking from Adam Schefter, but let's just take this with a grain of salt because a lot of insiders are giving contradictory reports from their quote unquote sources. But the latest report from Adam Schefter is that the New England Patriots are out of the running. They're going to focus on their young receivers. All right, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Washington, the Commanders are reportedly out. And based on conflicting reports, the Steelers are also out. Now, this could be a negotiating ploy by the 49ers or leaks from Aiyuk's representation to get these teams to drive up the price. They may be out on a lowball offer to San Francisco or an offer that Aiyuk isn't willing to accept contract-wise. So you leak information and saying things are happening or not happening as a leverage ploy to get teams to ante up more. If it was the Commanders, I would strongly consider Terry McLaurin in a draft pick. If they want to do McLaurin in a second or a third, whatever they feel is a commensurate trade. I know Washington's out of the running, but let's just say McLaurin and a pick I would be okay with. Again, you have to get something back that can help this team win now. Win in 2024, 2025, and beyond. A draft pick is not going to do it. A pick on the other side of the ball is not going to do that. And Pittsburgh, what pieces did they have? They're not going to give up George Pickens, nor do I want him. He's a bitch. He's a diva. He gives up on plays. As talented as he is or may be. People mentioned maybe Pat Fryer moved as a tight end. Yeah, a number 2 tight end where Kyle historically gets nothing out of number 2 tight ends. No. Mentioned Alex Highsmith. Defensive end, had 10 sacks. All right, they signed Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos. You can never have enough defensive ends, but that player is going to get buried, or his impact isn't going to be as great because of who else is on the roster. People are mentioning, maybe one of their rookie offensive linemen. They're not trading an offense, and they drafted 3 offensive linemen. They're not trading one of those. I mean, someone could say, well, they drafted 3. If you trade 1, you still got 2. They're not. They want to build that line. The Steelers do not have the pieces to pull off a trade. I don't know if Aiyuk wants to go there. He likes Mike Tomlin's Instagram. So, people are trying to read between the lines. There's Pittsburgh beat reporters that have been hell-bent for 3.5 months saying the same thing. Aiyuk's coming to Pittsburgh. Hasn't happened. Does it mean it can't happen in the future? Of course not. Anything's possible. I'm just giving you my opinion and following some logic, some common sense, and some breadcrumbs that have been there for us along the way. Pittsburgh does not have an offensive piece like Washington does that can help offset the loss of Brandon Aiyuk. Nor does New England. And that was rumored or discussed by Matt Mayoko, saying that presumably the Patriots would send a draft pick and former 49er wide receiver Kendrick Bourne back for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, there might be other F-bombs that I'm going to drop during this podcast, but are you fucking kidding me? Does anybody realize that Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL the end of October? You're going to trade a number 1 receiver for a pick and a receiver who at best is a number 3, maybe a low-end number 2, coming off of ACL surgery? Are you fucking serious? I wouldn't even have picked up the phone if I was John Lynch. You look at that roster, there is nothing offensively. They're going to be terrible. The Patriots are going to be in the running for the number 1 pick next year. There's nothing on that offense that would help San Francisco even to 70%, no, not even say, to 40% of what Aiyuk can accomplish. Or what Aiyuk brings to the table. And like I mentioned, per Adam Schefter, New England's out of the running. And he was out of the running always because in my opinion, because the ball was in Aiyuk's court, and it was reported that the Niners have a structure in place for a deal, which I still think there's a part of me that thinks that was bullshit. Because again, what the hell are you going to get from New England? That's as great of a run as they've had. They're a poverty franchise until Drake May proves them otherwise. Jared Mayo, glad you got a head coaching job. Your team's going to suck for the foreseeable future. But there's a structure in place with the Patriots, and Brandon Aiyuk probably looked at that and went, nah, I'm good. Yeah, I could probably get, I don't know, $2-3 million a year more. Who knows what the guaranteed money would look like. But you're the 4th best team in that division. You might be 5th or 6th. That's how bad you suck. You are not going to leapfrog the Jets or the Bills or the Dolphins. I think Aiyuk's smart enough to know you're not going anywhere on that team. Pittsburgh? What, 3rd best team in the AFC North? Enjoy Russell Wilson or Justin Fields throwing you. And Washington battling to be the 3rd best team in the AFC East. I'm sorry, NFC East. The only team that's interesting is Cleveland, because the Browns could offer wide receiver Amari Cooper and a pick for Brandon Aiyuk. It'll be Cooper's 10th year in the league, which, although that seems like a lot, I feel like he's been around longer between the Raiders, the Cowboys, and the Browns. Cooper's on the last year of his deal. He would only count $7.5 million on the cap. He does have void years in 2025 through 2028. I don't know how that would impact the 49ers cap on those years. I don't know if that's money that the Browns absorb or they split or gets ripped up if they were to give Amari Cooper a new contract. And looking up his stats and his availability, I would not label him an injury-prone wide receiver, but I did think that he missed more games than he has the past several years, but he's only missed 4 games the last 5 seasons. Now, that is not a predictor for ongoing health because there's a lot of luck that goes into that. But I thought, for whatever it's worth, that he missed more time than he did. And he put up a comparable year to Brandon Aiyuk, and he had, 3, maybe 4, let's just say 3 different quarterbacks throwing to him last year. Looking at that roster, this would never happen. But I also thought, well, what about wide receiver Jerry Jeudy? He was traded from the Broncos for a 5th and 6th round pick and was signed to an extension by the Browns. He's 25 years old. He's signed through 2028. And just get this, he's in the next 4 years, he's got cap hits of $4.7 million this year, $8 million, 10.3, 13.4, and then a void year in 2029. They're not going to trade a player they just traded for and gave up 2 picks for, and then giving up another pick for Aiyuk. But I looked at that and went, it's a young player, was in a bad situation with Denver, good route runner. Is he going to have 1,300 yards like Aiyuk did? No. Could I see him getting close to 1,000? Yeah. And with low cap hits, because the Niners are balking at Aiyuk's price. I guess 1, because they don't think he's worth it. And 2, they have a lot of mouths to feed financially. You would get, even though they're not going to, you'd get Jerry Jeudy, again, under 5, $8 million, 10, and 13.4 the next 4 years. That is wildly affordable. And his best football is still ahead of him. Amari Cooper, you make that trade, you're gonna have to extend him. And if Amari Cooper is gonna say, well, wait a minute, you traded Brandon Aiyuk to the Browns. Brandon Aiyuk, let's just hypothetically say, gets his $30 million. I had comparable stats to Aiyuk, and I've had a better overall career. I want close to that too. And then even 30 years old, then the discussion is, what is he worth? If you're going to trade Aiyuk for Cooper, you have to extend Cooper, in my opinion. And then what are you going to give him? And then is that difference in cost worth it? You're saving, I don't want to guess a number. I don't know, between say $4 and maybe $5.5 million a year between those 2 players. Is it worth it? Now, mathematically, in the grand scheme of things, maybe it is for roster building, but I don't believe so. So Cleveland right now is his best and his only hope. Let's borrow a Star Wars phrase and adjust it. Help me, Cleveland Browns. You're my only hope. I think that's the Brandon Aiyuk's agent playing the Princess Leia character, speaking to the Browns, which I guess in this instance would be R2-D2. So maybe it doesn't really make all that much sense. But the Browns are the only possibility. Now, could the Commanders or the Steelers re-engage? Yeah, but again, Pittsburgh doesn't have anything. They can't just go a tight end or a defensive player. It's not going to work. And I don't think Washington would give up McLaurin. But again, McLaurin, I think, is on the last year of his deal. He would need a new contract. Or maybe he's under contract for 1 more year. You would still run into the same issue with McLaurin as you have with Aiyuk. It's a very good top 10, top 15 receiver. that wants a new contract, and the market is only going to inflate in the coming year, next offseason, so the Niners would find themselves in a similar pickle. Just extend Brandon. He's worth more than 26. Anyone out there in Niner land working for the organization, you guys are lowballing him. And if you're doing it to save money because of the number of stars you have on the team, that's one thing. But to think that he's not worth more than what you're offering, you guys are wrong. I stand by the floor being $28.5 million annually. Now, let's just go over the three. You guys know this. You're a smart audience. 3 reasons why the Niners don't need to trade him. Number 1, he's under team control for the next 3 years. Again, what's the rush? He's under contract this year at a little over $14 million. If he sits out, he doesn't get paid. If he sits out the whole year, the year accrues, which means it doesn't count. And then in 2025, that would again be his 5th-year option year. He's not going to sit out. I said it earlier, if he showed up at training camp as a hold-in, he's going to play. He's not going to miss out on 17 game checks where each check's about, $800,000. I'm just doing that math in my head. I might be off, but less than $1 million a game. I'm sorry. Yeah, less than $1 million a game. Yeah. Plus franchise tag in 25 and franchise tag in 26. The Niners have him under control. Reason 2, the Niners are trying to win a Super Bowl and they are worse without Aiyuk. They are worse with McLaurin. They are worse with Amari Cooper. They're worse with Jerry Jeudy. They're worse with any receiver, realistically that you could trade for or bring in because of the chemistry that Aiyuk has had with Brock, playing with him for nearly 2 full years when you consider postseason games as well. A dumbass reporter asked Kyle Shanahan, Kyle, do you see any scenario where, if Aiyuk's not on the team that, you could somehow be better, that the team could be made better? And I would have laughed. No. No. And reason 3, who the hell is putting the gun to their head saying you have to trade him now? Who is tying them up and putting them on the train tracks like an old Western movie with the TNT, or just going to leave you there waiting for the train who's coming in the distance whistling, and you only have maybe 30 seconds to live? Who is actually the god of the countdown that says they have to trade him now? I said it before. Why is there no discussion about CeeDee Lamb, receiver of the Cowboys, getting traded? He wants a deal. And Dak wants a deal. And Micah Parsons wants a deal. They can't feed everybody. There's no discussion about T. Higgins. He's on the franchise tag. Not hearing that. Jamar Chase is a holdout or hold in. I'm not sure if he's there, but he's not part of training camp. Why is there no discussion there? It's all about Aiyuk. Aiyuk is not the best receiver of those 3. He's the 3rd best. It's Lamb, it's Chase, it's Aiyuk, then it's Higgins. God, it feels nice to be a part of a team where, everyone's talking about you, media, teams want them, whatever, but anyone putting calls out to Dallas, anyone putting calls out to Cincinnati, why are we hearing nothing? And I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm not. This is just an open-ended question. Why is there no discourse about these other receivers who want contracts to get traded? And I guess the easy answer is they haven't asked for a trade. I think maybe T. Higgins did at some point when he got franchise tagged. Maybe Lamb hasn't and Jamar Chase hasn't. But just because someone hasn't asked for it, why are there no leaks or discussions about rumor teams inquiring Dallas and Cincinnati and about CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase? It's just Aiyuk. But no matter how much you read on ESPN, on NFL.com, on blogs, any other website, social media, you're getting so much information thrown at you in a timeline that it makes it feel or sound like the clock is ticking. The clock's not ticking, guys. That show 24, remember on Fox with Kiefer Sutherland, that always had the countdown before it went to commercial? That don't exist here. The Niners literally don't have to do anything. Even if Brandon Aiyuk threatened to burn down the facility, the Niners don't have to do anything other than calling the cops. They do not have to do anything. If someone wants to say, well, you want to make a trade now so you can get someone in for him and you can get an Amari Cooper or whatever, Washington again, Terry McLaurin. Okay, fine. How quick they're going to get up to speed, whatever. But if your argument is going to be, well, you got to trade him because you want to get something for him, then they could have traded him in April. They could have traded him before. They could have traded him before the draft. They could have traded him right after the draft. They could have traded him in May. They could have traded him in June. They could have traded him in early July. And they have not. And the message has been consistent up until recently about we have no intention of trading Brandon Aiyuk. And they're going to want a package. And I've said this, and this, if I was John Lynch, I would want it too. I would want a package, commensurate to what Brandon Aiyuk thinks he's worth. Just because you're trading for him and have to give him $30 million doesn't mean you're going to lowball me on the return. You are getting a number one $30 million a year receiver, if that's what you're going to pay him. So kind of like Justin Jefferson, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Tyreek Hill, I want the haul back that you would give for those players. And that's why things aren't going anywhere. And Twitter, I talked about it. Let's have some levity. I mean, I tried to provide some levity, but let's have some real fun now. Twitter Twats is back, and the twats were twatting on Twitter to their heart's content. I'm going to go over, let me see if I can count 6 things I saw a whole lot more. Congratulations to the aforementioned Twitter Twats. For you 6 people, I'm not going to give any names. I could, it doesn't really matter, but why give these morons any more notoriety? You 6 people are the dumbest of the dumb. The most irrational of the irrational. I want to congratulate you. I have no award to give you other than the hopes that I am actually now not dumber for having read through your stuff. It's that scene in Happy Gilmore when he's on the game show and the person, he responds and the game show host was like, at no point did you come close to a coherent thought. Everyone in here is now dumber for having listened to that. I award you no points and may God have mercy in your soul. That is what scrolling through a Twitter feed. They refuse to call it X because that makes it sound like a porn site to me. So we're just going to keep calling it Twitter plus fuck Elon Musk. Let's get to these top 6 in no particular order. First one, and these are quotes, guys. All this talk about Aiyuk and he's not even a top 15 wide receiver. Now, I've listed out the players that I think are better receivers than Aiyuk. I don't have the list in front of me. I'm just going to go off the top of my head, right? We're going to go Jefferson. We're going to go Tyreek Hill. We're going to go CeeDee Lamb. We're going to go Jamar Chase. We're going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to go A.J. Brown. Again, I have no list in front of me. I'm doing this off the top of my head. The conversation for Brandon Aiyuk starts at 7. And it's multifactorial. He is a number one receiver. He is a good route runner. He can beat man. He will block, which is a necessity in Kyle's offense. Good rapport with the quarterback and an explosive player. So it starts at 7. If you're going to throw in, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, I'm just naming receivers, Stephon Diggs, I'm just naming receivers off the top of my head, DJ Moore. Okay, that's fine, but to me, the conversation starts at 7 for Brandon Aiyuk. And oh, by the way, this past season, Brandon Aiyuk was a second-team All-Pro. And guess what? They only take 7 receivers. Thereby, and this is hard for people, logic is hard. It's hard when they want, and when folks online, or just in general, want to have their own opinion and they're so steadfast to it whether they were a scout or not. Most of these people aren't. People think that they know a lot about football. A lot of them don't. People think that they're insiders. The vast majority of them aren't. But they make these lists and have these opinions on things, and generally they just do it for engagement. That's why they're Twitter twats. But common sense is hard. If Brandon Aiyuk was a second-team All-Pro, that means it was Aiyuk and 6 other receivers that got that honor. Are we going to say now that the folks that voted on NFL All-Pros no less than your average smuck on Twitter? Is that the argument? Oh, I have a Twitter feed and I paid more for the blue check mark and I post, 15 things a day and I make my list and I have 3,000 followers and I know what I'm talking about. Ugh. No, they know more than you. Your lists are great, except when they're not, and they're usually not. Now, quote number 2. Quote, source familiar with the 49ers Steelers Aiyuk trade negotiations. It's at the goal line. Yeah, but you're going the wrong way. It's at the goal line, but you still have to go 100 yards to score, moron. Morons. Multiple people dead set that he was going to Pittsburgh. Could it still happen? Sure. But per Adam Schefter's last report and per the players on their roster, he's not going to Pittsburgh. Next one, let's stay with the Steelers. Quote, sources say Aiyuk will be a Steeler by 8 p.m. Pacific. This was a couple days ago. Source, trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. I just got someone just hit me up on my phone and just, said that was happening, bro. I don't have a website or anything. Nothing. I'm just on Twitter, but trust me, bro. Yeah. That didn't happen. Now let's get into some fans that just don't really know about the 49ers roster. Now folks can be fans, and for those of us listening, we're all 49er fans, but let's just understand that fans' intelligence and levels of understanding about football, about the Niners, the roster, what certain players can and cannot do, vary, right? Here's a quote. Bye-bye, Aiyuk. They'll just slot in Jennings. For someone to make this statement, they probably haven't watched 49er football the last couple years. While I and many other fans love Juwan Jennings, love the intensity, love the dog in him, the blocking to and through the whistle, very well might have been the Super Bowl MVP if the Niners had won. In no way, shape, or form is Juwan Jennings a starting outside wide receiver. He's not. There's a better chance if Aiyuk gets traded that Chris Conley is your starting wide receiver than Juwan Jennings. I think it would be too much to put on Ricky Pearsall as a rookie. I mean, Aiyuk started as a rookie. Debo didn't really start as a rookie. He came on more towards the end of the season. Or he might have started, but really didn't make an impact till the latter quarter of the season and had, a decent playoff run in Super Bowl. Jennings isn't a starting outside receiver. He's not a wide receiver 1. He's not a wide receiver 2. He's a big slot. And he's made a living at that, which is great. And there is a need for that. But Jennings is not Aiyuk's replacement. Ricky Pearsall could be Aiyuk's replacement, but Ricky Pearsall is more than likely Debo Samuel's replacement starting next season. Next one, quote, Brandon Aiyuk has all of the leverage in the world. He can sit out and not play if he doesn't get what he wants. He can literally force San Francisco to trade him to Pittsburgh. In the immortal words of Luke Skywalker from Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I may not get this quote exactly right, but it's something to the effect of, amazing. Every single word you just said is wrong. 3 sentences. They're all terrible. First, Brandon Aiyuk has all the leverage in the world. He has 0 leverage, right? And maybe I know reading comprehension or understanding of words is tough for some people. Maybe somebody thought that leverage meant or means the exact opposite of what it actually does. It's the only way that sentence should ever be typed. But he has zero leverage. Niners control his rights for the next 3 football seasons. Sentence 2, he can sit out and not play if he doesn't get what he wants, and then he doesn't get paid. And his year doesn't accrue. And 2025 will be his 5th-year option. He can literally force San Francisco to trade him in Pittsburgh. How? Very, very, I would call it strange, but it's not, given the morons, the twats that we're dealing with here. And here's just a wrap-up comment that I thought was just odd. Quote, from 2 different people. Today was definitely a day. Second quote, bro, there's no other way to describe it. Now, I can see those statements being said by construction workers, people that maybe dig ditches, that perform physical labor, for 8, 10 or more hours a day. Landscapers, especially in the hot, summer days. But it feels totally different and stupid when it's coming from folks who are sitting with their in front of their laptops or their phones, feverishly typing away about the rumors of the moment. Oh man, I'm exhausted. That was a day, bro. No other way to talk about it. Oh, yeah, I think I got carpal tunnel syndrome, man. My thumbs are sore. I was typing so much on my phone, like I can't even move. I think I need a thumb brace or a thimble or something. My God, the drama, as if you're part of anything other than a ridiculous and sometimes toxic community of people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So congratulations. There's actually 7 people total, 7 quotes, even though I had them as listed as 6. So the Magnificent 7 Twitter twats for this week. Congratulations. Your slap in the face is in the mail. Now let's talk about the 49ers' history of trading away players. Since Shanahan and Lynch have come on board in 2017, they've traded away 11 players. Let's go down the list. 2017, cornerback Rashard Robinson. Remember him? You probably don't, and that's okay. He was traded to the Jets. 2018, tackle Trent Brown was traded to the Patriots, and linebacker Eli Harold to the Lions. We're going to go through the list, and we're going to talk about it. 2019, training camp hero Dakota Watson, linebacker, traded to the Broncos. 2020 was active. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner to the Colts. Running back Matt Breida to the Dolphins. Wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, to the Eagles. And linebacker Quan Alexander to the Saints. 2021, another training camp hero, linebacker Jonas Griffith traded to the Broncos. 2022, midseason running back Jeff Wilson traded to the Dolphins, and 2023, Trey Lance to the Cowboys. So what can we divine from this list? 1, the Niners like trading linebackers because they traded 3. 2, they don't really trade big name players. DeForest Buckner being the biggest, but they had to make a decision between he and Eric Armstead, and let's go back to another Lucasfilm movie reference, much like the Nazi in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when he thought he picked up the cup of Christ and drank the water from it, when the ghost knight told him, what do you say? You chose unwisely, or you chose wrong, whatever. God, I've watched Indiana Jones millions of times or hundreds of times, and I still don't remember that. But they chose wrong when it came to Buckner and Eric Armstead. Trent Brown would be the next most accomplished player on the list, and he just didn't fit, I guess, the body type of what Kyle Shanahan's looking for in offensive linemen. And he went on to have, a nice career with the Patriots and Raiders, then I think back to the Patriots, etc. Otherwise, a bunch of players and a bunch of complete no-names. Nice that they traded, Jeff Wilson to Miami after they acquired Christian McCaffrey. Trey Lance, remember guys, Trey Lance and his representation requested a trade during training camp when Lance lost the backup job to Darnold. And if anybody out there wants to say, oh, well, he had the deck stacked and they forced Trey Lance's hand to get traded. Well, right. Yes. You can believe whatever you want. All we know for a fact is, because it's been well documented and Trey admitted it himself, Trey Lance requested a trade. And then you have, like I said, another receiver, Marquise Goodwin, some no-name, linebackers. The Niners aren't in a habit of letting high-quality players go. And if you want to say, oh, well, but DeForest Buckner, 1 out of 11, but remember the circumstance. They had another defensive tackle that they then signed long-term and used that first-round pick on Javon Kinlaw, which they thought would be the DeForest Buckner replacement or, replacing 70-80% of DeForest Buckner, and that actually wound up being a bust. Which is why I think the Niners have to understand and learn from history that just because you drafted Ricky Pearsall doesn't mean now you can trade away Brandon Aiyuk. Or no one's asking anyone to choose right now between Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel. That choice will happen next year. The Niners can push off this financial quandary that they're actually not in, since they have more salary cap space than anybody in the NFL at slightly over $50 million. But because context matters, folks, that's only because Trent Williams' $10-ish million cap hit does not count since he's on the reserve list. Otherwise, they'd have slightly under $40 million in cap space and would get more by extending Aiyuk and would get more by reworking Trent Williams' contract. The Niners are not in a habit of getting rid of all-pro caliber players. If you're going to keep latching on to that DeForest Buckner thing, 1 in 11 players, that's less than 10% of the time. They acquire Trent Williams. They acquire Emmanuel Sanders. They acquire Charles Omenihu. They acquire Christian McCaffrey. In addition to others that I'm forgetting, that's just off the top of my head. They are more about getting in the difference-making type of players or solid depth pieces and trading away the mediocre, average to just a guy type of players. Now, I mentioned Matt Breida being traded to the Dolphins in 2020. Matt Breida is back. He signed this past Sunday night, a day after Eli Mitchell missed practice, and it was discussed that he has a hamstring strain, that he may be out for about a week, nothing serious, and a corresponding move, wide receiver Malik Turner, who was recently brought in, was put on IR. So the running back situation, mentioned at the top, Christian McCaffrey has a calf strain. Nothing to be concerned about. The season doesn't start for a month. He's going to be out of practice for a couple weeks, and Kyle Shanahan did say you would not see McCaffrey in the preseason, which I don't think you would have seen him anyway. Isaac Guerendo hurt his hamstring the first practice, was seen on a side field working out or getting treatment with Eli Mitchell. So he is not quite yet a candidate to go on IR, although that is my loose prediction that they will IR him and have either Cody Schrader or Matt Breida be wide receiver 4, assuming there's no other injuries between McCaffrey, Eli Mitchell, Jordan Mason. Then you have Schrader or Breida. Then you have Patrick Taylor, obviously there. as well. And Breida could be a candidate for the practice squad. The Niners, even though they are banged up a bit, have some really good depth this year at the running back position. The key, well, I'll say key in air quotes, the contingency or the dependency, that's the word I was looking for, is getting Christian McCaffrey off the field every once in a while, save him from himself, save him from wear and tear, and get other running backs on the field potentially or particularly in early downs. So let's go to our preview against the Titans. Niner football is back on Saturday, August 10th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You bet your ass I'm going to be signing up for NFL Plus to watch this preseason game either on my laptop or smart TV. I'll cancel that, once the game is over, because the Niners' next two games, I think one's on Fox, nationally televised, and one's on NFL Network. But what am I and what should we be looking for? I'm just curious at quarterback. Brock is not playing. What's the playing time? How's it going to be split? Who's going to start the game? Doesn't really mean anything because there's still a bunch of practices and two more preseason games after that to determine who will be the backup. And I still think it'll be Josh Dobbs. Will Dobbs start? Regardless, how much will Dobbs play? How much will Brandon Allen play? And Tanner Mordecai. It'd be nice if they gave Mordecai the fourth quarter. Dobbs plays maybe the first and into the second. Maybe Brandon Allen plays the second and then all the third. And then you give Mordecai some snaps. Same at running back. Like, how is everyone but Jordan Mason going to look? And the reason why I'm saying that is Eli Mitchell's not going to play with the hamstring. We know what Jordan Mason is. I'm curious to see Matt Breida's second tour of duty, Patrick Taylor, Cody Schrader. Mason will get some carries, but I'm curious for the new folks and the returning running back in Breida, how they're going to look. Tight ends, Kittle's not going to play, or if he plays, it's going to be for a series, a half a series, which is always ridiculous. Why would you have your starters go in for a series, especially if it's a 3 and out? Like, what did that do for you? You're practicing in pads. Like, what's the point? But tight end, who starts? I'm just curious. Not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, but who starts? Who's going to make an impact? Is Cam Latu? Is Latu going to show up at all? Seibert has gotten, some flowers heaped upon him. Logan Thomas, I think, was nursing a little bit of an injury. Does he play? Does Mason Pline make any sort of impact? What does Braden Willis do? Does he get a little time at fullback if Juszczyk doesn't play? The O-line is just about the interior, this, combination of backups between Ben Barch, who returned to practice, Nick Sekilu's getting some work at center, and Dominic Puny. Are those going to be your three starters in the interior of the line? Then if so, does undrafted, free agent Drake Nugent, how much playing time does he get at center? Jarrett Kingston, 6th round pick out of USC, has been working primarily at right tackle. How much is he going to play? That's not an interior line thing, but curious. I want to see all the rookies. I want to see all the new players because I know we're not going to see any of the stars. Receiver Jacob Cowing, rookie 4th rounder, is back from the hamstring strain. He was practicing today. Between Cowing, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, and Trent Taylor, just curious to see how they're going to look. What's going to happen with those players at punt return? Ricky Pearsall banged up his shoulder, so I doubt, and it was something that he had injured in OTAs, nothing major apparently, but I don't think he plays preseason game 1. So between Taylor and Bell, and I think Danny Gray was getting some looks at punt return also, how do they look? Linebackers, if Warner's not going to play, I guess it would be Campbell teamed up with perhaps D. Winters in terms of starters. Then how does Jalen Graham look? How does Tatum Bethune look? The rookie 7th round pick out of Florida State. How much play does Flanagan Fowles get and Ezekiel Turner? In quarterbacks, a lot of new and some youth and some good battles. Isaac Yiadom, he has a little bit of an ankle injury. Not sure if he's going to play in the first preseason game, but it would behoove him. Rookie Renardo Green, newcomer Rock Ya-Sin, second-year player Darrell Luter, and third-year player Sam Womack. Excited to see just these players mix it up. And I'm not going to get too invested in the results of the first preseason game, but we are going to break it down. So next podcast is going to be Monday at the absolute latest, but since the game is Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, hoping to have the next podcast on Sunday just to talk about the game, anything new with the Brandon Aiyuk 49er saga. Hopefully he signs by then. But I'm not going to, give stats or it's preseason game number 1. Everybody is, you're still doing installs of the offense. Just excited that, as we all should be, that 49er football in some form is back, and excited to get our first glimpses at a lot of new players, young players, free agents that are part of the team. Like anything else, you just want to get out of there healthy. There's been enough soft tissue injuries and players getting nicked up in training camp that we certainly don't want to see that extended into preseason games as well. So that's going to conclude the 49ers Plus podcast for this week. As always, I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. As I mentioned earlier, hoping to have the next podcast on Sunday, recapping the Titans game and anything that is newsworthy and noteworthy to discuss from Ninerland. But until then, whatever you are doing, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.